evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello and welcome to the SimRacers Asia GTE-Radical Series. Round 7 takes us to the legendary Circuit du Mans. Or if you're speaking in English, the 24 Hours of Le Mans circuit here, the Circuit de la Sarthe. My name is Matthew Palmer. Today I'll be joined with, as usual, Chan Wei Hen and our special guest, Bryant Chua, who will be with us in a few moments' time. But for now, just have a look at that fantastic track. 13.5 kilometers long, quite warm temperatures out there. It's going to be very grippy and very, very quick indeed for a lot of these drivers there. But the main question is going to be who is going to master the long straights and the slipstreaming required to get a good, fast race. Right now we're in qualifying and we're on board with Jaswin Jali down the legendary Mulsanne Straight.
So yeah, this is exactly where the cars go full slipstream mode. Understand that these GTE cars are built on this very racetrack. They do race everywhere around the world, but this Circuit de la Sarthe is where they're built to be raced. Because they do so like perhaps once every year in the month of June. But this year is a little bit different. It was races in Hanoi where the 24 Hours of Le Mans happened. Now, of course, the challenges that the drivers will face, of course, for one, it's going to be a higher fuel burn, because these straights are much longer, and it does mean that drivers will spend more time on their throttle. Now, of course, we have a total of approximately 17 or 18 drivers on the grid, so that does mean that the field might become a bit more sparse as the minutes tick by, as opposed to a much more packed, race grid. But I think otherwise, though, we'll be in for quite an exciting race, nonetheless, because we've got so many great drivers here out of the grid tonight.
Absolutely, we're on board with Jaswin Jali. Federico Teixeira is out there putting the fast laps in. Govinda Singh has gone purple both in the first sector and in the fourth sector. We, I believe, have split this track up into 7 sectors due to the length of the track. And now we're coming out of a corner known as Arnage, just out of the Indianapolis complex, going down to run up to the old Maison Blanche corner. Instead of taking the left-hander that they used to do back in the 50s and 60s, you're going to turn bare right into the famous Porsche curves. Fantastic series of corners here, and it is true that for a lot of these manufacturers, especially Corvette, who develops the C7 that Jaswin Jali is driving right now, the World Endurance Championship is almost unimportant as long as they can win right here at Le Mans. So it's going to be very interesting to see which one of these cars is going to be quick today on the sim. Have a look for any Ford GT drivers out there as well. They are looking to be very quick. The Corvette, for a lot of you endurance racing fans out there, perhaps a bit of an open question because it is the newest car in the series, but unfortunately they weren't able to run, I believe, at Le Mans this year. But it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. Jaswin Jali is the first man to set a lap time 3 minutes 49.540. Could we see a 3:47 or even a 3:46 from these guys?
So of course, as the drivers come around the final corners and of course the start-finish line, this is pretty much because the laps are long and the qualifying session does not extend. The drivers will only have perhaps 2 or 3 time laps at most as they go through their qualifying session. Now look, with us tonight we've also got Bryant Chua. He is in fact our friend from SRA as well as SimRacing Singapore, and he's behind many of the Assetto Corsa and ACC competition events that we do host. So we're very grateful to have you here with us, Bryant. If you could tell us what you feel about the race going towards the 7th round of the race here tonight at Le Mans at such a track, and perhaps some of your personal experiences with racing cars on this track at various different titles.
Hey everyone, thanks for the introduction. This is gonna be an exciting one. We have such a long circuit. It's really gonna prove for the drivers to be really focused. To make sure that they don't make any mistakes, because once they start to make a mistake, it's going to be hard for them to catch up. I personally did a 2.4-hour race on this track because we wanted to try out something similar to the Le Mans, but we didn't want to do 24 hours because, well, it's 24 hours in front of a computer. But yeah, this circuit is not it is not an easy circuit, but it is a very fun circuit when you start to race with people you know, and the side by side racing that you get on this circuit, it's actually quite exciting.
Almost
Absolutely.
certainly. Yep. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, most certainly. I was just going to say, of course, every track offers unique challenges to drivers, and Le Mans is no different. Of course, this one corner, the Mausan corner that this driver is taking at this point, this is Federico Teixeira. He's set at a time of 3:52. Of course, this track is longer, so the time differences will be slightly extended. Now, that's one corner that drivers will have to be careful as they make their way around, because it's quite easy to kind of trip yourself over there. He's now making his way through the different sections, and as we follow along his car, this is kind of like the third or fourth high-speed sections, because there are many high-speed sections on this track, but there are some that are much longer than others. And right now he's coming towards the left Indianapolis corner, and then Arnage in front. These are some potential overtaking zones.
Indeed. I was just going to ask Brian there if he had any particular part of the track that you really enjoy. For me, it was the Porsche curves. Always, if you ever get those right, it feels so good. But I was wondering, especially with yourself, John Rehan, as well, if you guys have a favorite part of the track.
Surprisingly for me, it's not the curves. I like the straights actually. I mean, you get to floor it and just keep going, and I don't want that to end. You know that the little chicane that's not helping. I'd rather go straight all the way.
I kind of favor the Tetra Rouge, in fact, because it's one corner that you have to get right, or it will kind of ruin your pace for a good portion of the lap. So that's my take on the corner that I do like. I don't enjoy taking that corner, or rather, I do enjoy taking that corner if I don't run wide. But on iRacing, there's. Oops.
And as Federico decides to take a rather interesting line to abort his lap, we'll just have a quick look at the top 10. Right now we do have 10 times on the leaderboard, as you can see there, Kevin Huang really pushing that car along very, very nicely indeed. I believe he is in that fantastic Ford GT, if I'm not mistaken. And unfortunately he's gone off the road as well. Lloyd Lachlan braving the elements in his Radical as he heads down. It must feel absolutely amazing to drive a Radical around here. It's like a mini Le Mans racer, and taking it to the Le Mans 24-hour circuit must feel absolutely amazing. But for now, let's just have a quick look at the top 10. As it stands right now, Jaswin Jali is on pole position, on provisional pole position, in fact, followed by Kelvinder Singh in second place. That's Corvette on pole, and BMW in second place, with Saiful Arifin in third, also in BMW. Mitchell Hui is in fourth, followed by Muhammad Muhaimin, Pariwat Chukan, Wai Leong, Federico Teixeira, Kake, and Lloyd Lachlan, the man we're on board with right now.
So, because this is one of, in fact, the drivers do have the option to take the Radicals in this series, although it is a non-championship racing class. But I think it's just something unique with this Radical car is that right now it is free for all iRacing members. But on top of that, it does offer an additional style of racing that you don't exactly fully experience with most other cars, because it is an open top car, but one that is not difficult to handle, and one that you're just able to push and have fun with. This is being driven by Lloyd Lachlan, and it would seem to have become our resident Radical driver here on SimRacers Asia.
Indeed he has, and it's a fantastic little car to drive around with. Fun fact, I used to actually work on a couple of Radical race cars back here in Malaysia, and they were quite interesting little beasts to work on, and fantastic. It's a car that really doesn't exist anymore, an open-topped sports prototype car. It really does make you feel very close to the elements when you're driving it. Very thrilling indeed. Chad Leslie right now, he I believe is in the BMW as we thunder around the Porsche curves there, and it looks like the points of interest there, the Porsche curves, you have to get absolutely right to have a good end to your lap, but as John Wei Hen there has said earlier, the entrance onto the high-speed sections, Ulsan, and the run-up to Indianapolis, those are the places you have to get absolutely right. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go on as we end the session.
So the drivers do have some moments to complete their laps if they are in fact running. So I think the clock is at 5 minutes remaining in the session. Of course, this is past checkered flag, so any driver who passes the start finish line will have to end that qualifying session. Shami Azri makes his way up to provisional third. He will begin from third with a qualifying lap time of 3:55.83. So we've also got a couple of other drivers. I think these drivers will also be able to make it towards the end of the lap. Towards the end of the qualifying session. So we are with Saiful Arifin, who's also one of the very fast drivers on the grid. He's along the Mulsanne Straight, and I think judging by his performance, his previous lap time was 3:59.96. Of course, he would have to, I guess, best his lap time by a few tenths of a second to make it up to the top 3.
I believe he may be, well, he's definitely one of the last drivers still out there on the track. He's on the far side of the circuit, so he's definitely going to put his foot down to try and complete this lap. So, and it looks like it's a 6-minute lap according to the timing screen there. I'm not too sure if that's accurate.
Glitch.
Alright, I was just wondering for a moment there. We do have a little bit of a glitch when it comes to the end of qualifying session, but we will get the actual time for Saiful Arifin if he manages to get back to the pits. But yeah, this is going to be a very exciting race coming up there. Jasrin Jali, a very quick driver there, but we also have some quick drivers down there in the midfield. Saiful Arifin is a lot further back than he usually is, and hopefully he'll be able to get a little bit further up the grid, but if not, he's going to have a real fight on his hands to try and get himself up to the front of the field. Federico Teixeira is going to be quite quick as well. It'll be interesting to see how Lloyd fares against these big GTE cars. Now, while we wait for the session to end, we of course do have Bryant in the studio, in the virtual studio with us right now. But you do sort of run a lot of the AC championships, the Assetto Corsa championships. I myself am a personal fan of Assetto Corsa, and I'd love to know just a little bit more about the events that you put on. So why don't you take us through those events?
Sure. For us, SRA, we do the AC League. AC League is sort of the entrance league, which we will call it, for many of the new drivers to come in to have their first hand to SimRacing. And at the start, in between each season, we do try and choose certain cars to fit the driver skills. So last season, actually, we did a Audi TT Cup. That was a nice car to drive. It was challenging to some extent because it's a front wheel drive, even for myself, because so far we've only done rear wheel drive more or less. So that those were certain things that we looked at, and this season we tried the Hummer actually. So that's another interesting car that we're driving. So that's much what we do at the AC League. And many of them do practice a lot for the AC League. We do have a server running 24/7, so any drivers can go in anytime they want to practice what they need to do before the event itself. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. So do look up the SRA community and do find a friendly SRA member who will point you in the right directions. Of course, you guys will probably have a splash page somewhere that we can point to. Perhaps in the comment section later on, so that people can find out more about the Assetto Corsa Championships. We've been very, very lucky with the Assetto Corsa Championships we've been running. It's been absolutely fantastic stuff. And now, as the final seconds of qualifying dies away, we're going to hopefully be able to get the grid up very shortly indeed, as we change from qualifying to the race. It looks like it's going to be a very interesting little battle there, because the cars can be quite different around Le Mans. There's a lot of drivers, there's a lot of cars that really push for that straight line speed, and a lot of the other cars are sort of designed and built around the idea of getting traction out of the corners and onto those long straights as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how the different makes sort of go through the track, but it's going to be a very interesting event indeed. And well, it's GTE cars at Le Mans, the place where they were born to tackle. It's going to be an absolutely epic race.
Most certainly. So the seconds do tick down to the moment where right before where the drivers will begin to take the grid. So it will most likely be a rolling start. Of course, here on this circuit, the pace lap is not the entire lap. Of course, it's just the final sector that the drivers will go under the safety car before the race leader takes the green flag. So of course, as with the earlier rounds, we will end under the stars. So this is your starting grid for round 7 here at Le Mans. So starting from pole is Jaiswin Jali. Second is Kelvinder Singh. Third is Saiful Arifin. And beginning from rounding out the second row will be Shami Azri. From fifth is our friend Mitchell Wee. And from sixth is Muhammad Muhammad. Seventh is Parot Chukan. As well as we've also got Leong Wai In from beginning from 8th. We've got Federico Teixeira and Fred Ting in 9th and 10th. Kake from 11th and Mark Lang at 12th.
Further down the field, just to round things out, we have Lloyd Lachlan there in 13th place. Jasri Junos is in 14th. He's going to be quite quick, as he tends to be in these GT cars, but he has opted not to take too many laps there. And we have 4 drivers who did not qualify. Kevin Huang looks to be very quick as well, so we might see an interesting blast through the pack from him. Joe Huang, I believe, is running in his debut broadcasted race for Adrenaline Impact. He is in 16th place. Shawa Rajab there in 17th, along with Narong Bunsanog in 18th place for CFG Racing. So this is going to be an absolutely fantastic start to the race. A glorious run down through the back circuit, through the Porsche curves. Now the nerves must be building up for these drivers there. An absolutely iconic place to race. They'll be checking their tyres, trying to warm up the brakes, and make sure they're all ready and set to go as the Porsche safety car begins to bring them around to the start of the race. Through the Porsche curves, then through the Corvette curves, S Ducati, and on to the Ford chicanes. When you look at that, that's an absolutely spectacular view, and to have the race go into the night, that's really going to bring the Le Mans flavour into it, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. So of course, some of the drivers active in the race chat, because having a little bit of fun and final moments of fun before the green flag flies for what the real racing action will be. So Jali has the lead at this point. So I think as the cars make their way around these corners slowly, they can kind of also get into the feel of into the rhythm of how the corners will be.
Absolutely, and in the comment section there we have Taguasha there. May the traction be with you, and we'll echo those statements here in the commentary box. Hopefully everyone will get away safely. Now we'll pass the second to last section, SD karting, which is the karting circuit there, as you can see in the background. And as the Porsche makes its traditional, well, I was going to say its traditional dive through the pits, but I believe the Porsche will take a different route into the pits, perhaps at the final lap. We are at the final moment rather, and we are going to go into the Ford curves. The tension's building, and Jasmine Jali goes for it early. The lights are on, and it's called. The race is go, go, go. Jasmine Jali has a massive head start. Kelvinder Singh's the only man who can hang with him at the start of the race there. He goes into the Dunlop curves, absolutely clear in the lead. Saiful Arifin, meanwhile, he's cutting and charging his way through. He's already up into 4th place, but he's gone off the track. he's gone off the track, and Mitchell Hui manages to get himself up into 3rd place. Meanwhile, Mohammed Mohaimin is in 4th place, desperately trying to keep that Porsche as high up the field as possible. The cars are side by side going through Estée La Forêt and into the final corner of this section, Tête Rouge. As Chan Wei-Han said, it's absolutely critical to get the drive out of this corner before we get on to the legendary Mulsanne Straight. There's already a car that's had to drop back just a little bit. It looks like Safa Arifin had to give away a few more places. That's really going to give him a big job in order to try and catch up with the cars up ahead there. But for now, Jaswin Jali with a massive lead right now. Jaswin Jali and Kelvinder Singh with a massive lead over Mitchell Hui. 2.4 seconds at the coming into the first chicane, but that's amazing stuff there from the two Malaysians who managed to get away far earlier than the rest of the field. But Jaswin Jali isn't clear of everyone. He's got Kelvinder Singh definitely in the slipstream zone as well, so it's going to be very exciting stuff indeed coming here from Lasaf.
A brilliant start through the race, as we've had so many position changes. The live timing was just jumping up and down, which meant that drivers were making so many overtaking maneuvers. So the cars have pretty much cleared the first half of the track as they emerge towards the second chicane along the Mulsanne Straight, and this is where the drivers will continue pursuing the cars in front of them. So I think very much slipstreaming is it still plays a huge role in how the cars perform along this section of the track, as we see the cars going kind of bumper to bumper behind them. Of course, right now this is Mohammed Mohaimin in his Porsche, as he's coming under. He's not exactly coming under pressure from the cars behind him. Behind him would be perhaps some of the other cars, and he's just making his way along around the Mulsanne corner. And I think we do hear a bit of contact in the background.
It does seem so, and it looks like there's going to be a bit of a one-make battle in the middle of the race here. Parwat-Chukan is at the head of this train of BMW M8. Shami Azri is getting really close to the back of Parwat-Chukan, so let's see if he's able to make an overtaking maneuver. We're coming into the Indianapolis corner there. It looks like Shami just doesn't have the right line to go through there quick enough to get side by side, but now he's going to come up to Arnage and look at the sea of BMWs behind him. Federico Texera is also relatively close to Shami Azri, so Shami's going to have to drive with one eye looking forward and one eye looking back. And if you can find a spare set of eyes, you can try and drive the car at the same time. It's really nerve-wracking stuff there from Shami Azri in the pink BMW.
It was a very important move by Jaswin Jali to have that start. I think having that amazing start at the very beginning really helped him to continue to lead in first place. With Kelvinder Singh trying very hard to catch him and still behind Jaswin Jali.
Indeed he is, and that is such, as you very well know, with a track like this, it's so important to try and break the toe to the car behind him. Jaswin Jali has managed to do that for all but one car. Kelvinder Singh there doing his level best to try and stay within a second of the car ahead and really get to within striking zone. But meanwhile, Wai In Leong has a big accident there going into the forward curves. That looks to be contact with one of the Ferraris there. It looks like it was contact between Mark Lang and Wai In Leong, and that's going to really put him back a bit. In fact, Lloyd Lachlan has managed to get past as well. That's going to be quite a few places for him to try and get back into racing contention. That was a big incident.
Sure was. So if we do have a look at the incident once again, it was a contact between Leong Wai-In and Fred Ting. So it happened when both drivers crossed paths with each other across the Ford chicane. So this is another view of how the incident unfolded. You can just see that both drivers kind of converged onto one single path, and that resulted in Leong going off the track at such a crucial point of the track. We're now back with live pictures with Lloyd Lachlan, who sits ahead of Leong, and you can just see how small the Radical is in comparison with the GTE cars.
The one thing for sure, Lloyd Lachlan is not a man who is easily intimidated by the bigger machinery around him. Meanwhile, Parwat-Chukan is side by side. It looks like he's side by side with Mohaimin, I believe, who is just struggling to try and keep himself within striking distance of that BMW. You can see there Mohammed really trying everything to try and make sure he won't lose the position, but unfortunately he's coming into the braking zone. It looks like Parawachukan is able to keep it himself in 4th place. And apologies to Wai Leong for calling him up there. But in any case there, we can see it looks like Mohammed Mohammed might not have the straight line advantage. I believe this is an open setup event, so a lot of these drivers will be able to set the wings up, and that's going to be crucial here at Le Mans. The amount of drag you give away on the straight is directly in reverse proportional to the amount of grip you gain in the corners from the aerodynamic downforce as well. So it's going to be very, very critical to try and balance that out. And it looks like Mohammed Mohammed might have a little bit of trouble there, but it looks like Parawat's going very slowly indeed. Could there have been a little bit of contact?
So this is Parawachukan, he would appear to be losing a couple of positions. He's just done so to Kevin Huang, where Kevin did overtake him. So I think something might be going on under the bonnet of this car, but at this point we are also having a look at Federico Teixeira. He sits in 5th, and he is fending off Shami Azri, who's in the pink BMW in 6th. So, both of them drive the same car, both of them being big, so I would imagine the slipstream effects are present. Of course, they're having a good time at this point, and this is them making their way around the Porsche curves. And of course, it's not exactly an easy section. You've got the Michelin wall along the outside. That's somewhere where if you're not careful, you can in fact collect your car in the wall in a manner that isn't exactly the most fabulous. But of course, they now emerge from that point and they come along this. I think it's Maison Blanche. Correct me if I'm wrong, Max. Yeah, and this is them approaching the Ford chicanes.
Indeed it is. You can actually see on the track behind the Porsche sort of showroom that is here, that gets built here every year for Le Mans. Porsche actually come along, they build a massive showroom, and that's on the grounds of the Maison Blanche, which is the White House that drivers used to bear left across before getting into the start-finish straight, but now they go right and through the S's. So as we go over the crest here, Federico Teixeira, he's really going to have to be careful with Shami Azri, because as you said, the slipstream effect is going to be huge, especially coming up to the Mulsanne straight. It's going to be absolutely critical for Federico to get these sections of corners just right, otherwise he might have a bit of a handful when it comes to the first or second chicane.
It seems like Mohammed is actually dropping down the field. Way further down. He's in 3rd field position actually.
Well, it looks like there's a lot of damage on the back of that Porsche. Now the wings are damaged quite badly, and the rear bodywork is damaged quite badly, and that's going to really ruin the aerodynamic properties of that little Porsche. It's going to be very hard to drive. I'm sure there's ways to try and mitigate it, but around Le Mans it's going to be a real challenge for Mohammed to try and keep that car competitive. A real shame indeed from the Porsche driver. Oh God! Yes, Lloyd Lachlan has commented as he's driving around the track there. More speed, please. We'll try and send the nitrous bottles in for your first pit stop. That's pretty incredible stuff. He's done this to us before, but it's the first time he's done this in a World Championship race, and I have to say, kudos to him. It must be really hard to actually try and drive a sports prototype car and text at the same time. Now, of course, here at Adrenaline Impact, we'd just like to remind viewers to not text and drive, and try and drive without being distracted. But Lloyd Lachlan never fails to amaze us. Absolutely entertaining character. Wonderful to have him in the series.
So back with Shami Azri as he sits along the slipstream of Federico Teixeira. So these two drivers have been at it for quite some time now. So this is Azri's perhaps going to go along the inside for a move up to P4. So this is now them both going side by side with each other, going for a top speed run down this almost straight segment. We've also got Kevin Huang who's in the face trying to find a way through as well. He's trying to go along the outside, but Shami Azri being able to seal that position. Oh, a mistake, and this means that Shami Azri has gone around and he is going to lose his position to Kevin Huang and Pariwat Chukan. So unfortunate mistake there as he made his way through the Indianapolis corner.
To me, it looked like he got the car just a little bit unstable on the braking, and it's so hard to drive. Now, on the television pictures you see right now, Le Mans may look quite smooth in places, but in fact, it's very, almost viciously bumpy. For 340 days of the year, Le Mans circuit is in fact half public road, and the other half doesn't get used that often. There is a permanent racing circuit here, the Circuit Bugatti, but it doesn't get used too often itself, and it only uses a small section of the main circuit, so it's very, very easy, especially coming into the braking zones, to get the car unstable there. And unfortunately, so Shami Azri there just got a little bit caught out by that coming into Indianapolis, but that moves Kevin Huang up into 5th place. And meanwhile, we're going to have a look at Kelvinder Singh, who is still chasing down Jaswin Jali. Now, interestingly enough, Kelvinder Singh hasn't dropped back that much. Jaswin isn't pulling away from him that much, if at all. And it may be due to the fact that Kelvinder is able to utilize that slipstream effect that's so important here at Le Mans in order to try and keep within touching distance of the man in front. This could be a battle that goes down all the way through to the end of the race. Absolutely interesting stuff here, and we could see an overtaking maneuver in the next few laps from these guys, but it looks like for Jaswin Jali, he may be in the lead, but it may not be all over yet.
We continue riding on board Saiful Arifin as we observe, he is also known to be one of the fastest drivers around. So I think he's going to try to look for an overtaking opportunity ahead of Pariwat Chukan. So whilst Saiful is doing that, we might expect him to make some maneuvers in the next couple of moments. Look, Brian, I'd just like to first ask to talk a bit more about, I guess, the how how you would find. Understand that you had come from a background involving AC and ACC, and you've also had some experience with the iRacing platform itself. So how would you, kind of find the experience on AC as opposed to one on iRacing? Where do you think the merits are when you decide to go with either?
Seem to have lost Bright, unfortunately. That's a little bit worrying there, but I'm just going to pip in there just for a split second to see that Kelvinder Singh is challenging for the lead. They tried to go side by side going into the Mulsanne corner. Now they are now side by side on the run up to Indianapolis, and it looks like Kelvinder Singh has in fact managed to get himself up into the lead of the race. So he is now in first place, but Jaswin Jali might be able to counter-attack coming into Indianapolis itself. They're going to go side by side coming into the braking zone here. It's going to be absolutely on the wire here. Through the fast left-hander, it looks like Jaswin Jali decides discretion is the better part of valor, and he's going to let Kelvinder Singh pass, but it looks like this battle is going to rage on for quite a few more laps to come.
I can come back. Am I back?
Yes, you are.
I'm sorry. I think back to Wihan's question earlier on was that AC gives it's a bigger plus because you get a lot of different mods that you can try, and you get to try a lot of different tracks, different cars, stuff that sometimes you can get on iRacing as well. But in terms of driving, I honestly it really depends on each individual and what they really want. I would say iRacing gives you a lot better, closer racing because you are classified based on your ratings in iRacing. But in AC, because it's an open platform, slightly harder to do classifications. So you tend to have races where the faster guys are always in front, and the slower guys are always at the back, and you get those kind of races. So it really depends on what you like and what a driver who wants to come into sim racing or has been in sim racing for a while would have to choose for.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think it's so great that in this day and age we have the liberty of choices and options to run the different sim titles and kind of decide for ourselves what we find becomes most suitable for us, or better still have all of them. Right now this is the battle between Calvin Singh and Jason Jali is raging, but so is this one between Parawat Chukan and Saiful Arifin. This is the battle for P6. So we have just passed the first third mark of this 45-minute long race, and you can see that the sun is just slightly beginning to set. So I think you would see the festival of lights come into full force in towards the tail end of this race. So Saiful Arifin had just taken the exit of Tetra Rouge a little bit optimistically there, so I think he nearly copped himself a slowdown, but that did not happen, so fortunate for him. And he's probably going to find a window of opportunity across Parawat Chukan, and we'll see if he's able to make this work over the next couple of segments.
I actually can't wait for the night to come. That'll be interesting. That would be nice, and everything looks different. Actually, I think.
Yeah, I think the difference is that in iRacing you don't have the soul shader pack.
Right. But still, night times with just the car lights and the track lights. That would be nice. That would be nice.
You just have to wait and see.
Indeed we will, and it looks like it's going to come, if not in the chicanes, into the final corner. But Saiful Arifin tries to go around the outside of Parawat Chukan, gets the car sideways, and he's off the track. Saiful Arifin, a very, very brave manoeuvre, and unfortunately it didn't quite work out for him, but he got the car fully sideways, trying to go around the outside of Parawat Chukan, but he's unfortunately didn't come out smelling of roses through that one. Meanwhile, Kevin Huang is moving his way up through the field there, battling with Federico Texeira. This is a battle that could rage on for quite some time. But it looks like Kevin Huang manages to get himself up into 4th place. Federico Texeira is just behind, but that BMW does have quite a bit of muscle to it. And for all of its sleekness, the Ford GT does tend to have quite a big weight behind it as well. So it could equalize itself out when it comes to slipstreaming. You can see there Federico Texeira definitely get that slipstream happening quite easily going into Indianapolis. It'll be interesting to see how this battle plays out. And speaking of lights, you have to wait until you see Kevin Huang's Ford GT at night. The lighting is amazing. I love the way the Ford guys have put the design of the car and really enhanced it with the lights. You're going to see what I mean as the race gets further into the night. That car is going to light up rather spectacularly.
That I'll be looking forward to that, definitely. I've always find racing at night at Le Mans is something that I mean we have probably only can do it virtually, but those drivers who drive at night at Le Mans, it's really another level of racing. It's so different from what we do or even what they do in the daytime.
Indeed it is. Having been lucky enough to speak to a couple of drivers who have been to Le Mans, it's amazing that they say that once you get past the pits at night, you're almost transported back to the 60s. You suddenly become very aware that you're racing on a closed public road. As you go past, you no longer see the safety barriers on the side. You no longer see the catch fencing on the marshal's posts. The only thing you see is the road and the marshal's lights. And even then, sometimes the marshal lights can be a little bit tricky to spot from the cockpit of a LMP2 or a GTE car. But it's absolutely evocative, and nighttime really does bring the history back to the track. It really makes the track come alive, and there's an atmosphere like no other. And you have to be brave to be hurtling along the French countryside at the speeds these guys do at night. Real hats off to them for actually getting into the real life racing cars and powering through the 24 hours of Le Mans. It's an absolutely stunning race. But meanwhile, Jaswin Jali looks like he's got a massive toe there from Kelvinder Singh. Could this be another change for the lead? They're going to go into the braking zone side by side, diving into the brakes there. Jaswin Jali neatly cuts across the bows of Kelvinder Singh and manages to get himself up into first place. But Kelvinder Singh is right behind him. Will Kelvin be able to catch the slipstream off that Corvette and try and get that position back? We will just have to wait and see.
We've also got a certain Mitchell Wee who is doing quite well for himself, quite a distance behind. He is currently in third, and yeah, you can just see him there. So he's probably, of course, in this view, the cars are quite close together, but there is a bit of distance that separates Mitchell from Kelvinder as well as Jaiswin. So things will appear to be going on rather smoothly up front with a fantastic show between Jaiswin and Kelvinder. Likewise, the rest of the field, because we've seen so many good battles take place all throughout the field.
And if you do get a chance to see the back of Mitchell Whee's car, a big shout out to Noriaro there, who's got Mitchell Whee's put a little Noriaro sticker on the back of the Ferrari there, which I thought was quite humorous. Noriaro, for those of you who don't know, is an Australian drifter by the name of Alexei, who does a lot of fantastic car-related or drifting-related content on YouTube, so do check that out. It's quite interesting stuff indeed. But meanwhile, Kelvinder Singh looks like he's catching right back up to Jaswin Jali. This could end up being an almost oval-like situation where the man who's at the lead of the penultimate lap is not necessarily the driver who's in the lead and the race, but it looks like Jaswin Jali almost threw it all away there, getting very, very close to the barrier on the grass. It looks like these two drivers are pushing as hard as possible in order to try and take that lead and keep it.
It sure is. We've just so happened to have such a fantastic camera position on top of Kelvinder's car. It does put into perspective. Right now you can feel the speed that Kelvinder is experiencing. So much so that it's probably something that you won't really exactly be able to perceive when you're in a simulator cockpit. Because this is very nice. You do kind of see this wide FOV effect with all the walls kind of rushing by you so quickly, and now he's just making his way around the Porsche curves. It's not easy to get those corners right. You have to get your entries right in order to execute the whole racing line properly. And this is him going in, taking the entry of the Ford chicanes. Now, of course, you can use a bit of that pit entry to angle your car inwards to take this chicane, and that was exactly what all these cars did.
Indeed he has, and it's going to be an absolutely interesting back and forth battle. But as we pass the halfway mark, just a quick look at the results, or a quick look at the standings, I do apologise. As they stand right now, Jaswin Jali is in the lead at the moment, with Kelvinder Singh very close behind, less than a second away in second place. Mitchell Hui is in third place, ready to take any positions away should the leading two drivers have any mistakes. So he is in a prime position to capitalize on any snafus that happen to happen up ahead. Kevin Huang there is in fourth place. Like I said, that beautiful Ford GT. He's 10 seconds behind, but never say never. And if the guys up ahead are burning a little bit too much fuel, then the fuel economy of the Ford GT might come into play as well. In fifth place is Federico Teixeira, who is doing a very good job there. He's the leading BMW driver in that train of BMWs. We saw the 4-car train that we saw earlier in the race. He has come out on top in that little one-make battle. He is up into fifth place, ahead of Parwat Chukan, down in sixth place in a similar BMW M8, that red machine there. He had a battle earlier on with the man in seventh place, Saiful Arifin, who is now currently a little bit lonely. He's 12 seconds behind the car ahead, and he is 4 seconds ahead of the car behind. The car behind being Fred Ting in the second of the two Corvettes. Wai Leong is in ninth place, followed by Mark Lang, Joe Huang, Shami Azri, Lloyd Lachlan, Kake, Mohammed Haimin, Jasri Junos, Shawar Rajab, and Marong Bun Sanom, who is unfortunately out of the race.
Seems that Kelvinder actually took back the first position at the same corner that Jaswin overtook him in the last lap. So that must be a very prime spot for most drivers to want to consider to overtake, I guess.
Indeed, it does look so. The slipstream effect here really plays into its own. So on the Mulsanne, you have to be so vigilant of the car behind you. You really do have to start racing down that straight, almost as if you were on an oval. It becomes a battle of tactics, almost like a peloton race, a peloton in a bicycle race. You're always jostling for position in a battle. And it does look like this battle is going on very nicely indeed. Kavinder Singh, as you quite rightly mentioned, has taken the lead in the same place there. It looks like that's going to be the position, that might in fact even be the corner that decides the race. Whoever could get past at that corner might be able to hold off the car behind all the way to the end of the lap. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Most certainly. So, of course, the battle for a race lead is still raging on. You know, they've been exchanging places all race long, and they're going to probably continue to do so. Also, you know, in part due to the way this track is, it does promote overtaking. You know, you've got a series of high-speed corners as well as long straights, which, you know, does kind of put a lot of emphasis on slipstreaming as well. Of course, we don't forget Mitchell Wee right there. Just the distance, he also wants to try to close this gap as well. So if we do have a look at some of the time differences, it would appear that Mitchell Wee is in fact a second, just under 2 seconds behind Jaiswin Jali. So of course, you know, this kind of boils down to kind of the age-old question. You know, when you're fighting up ahead for position, you know, you've got a car who's kind of a distance right behind you. You know, the question is, you know, do you continue fighting with the other driver in front or behind of you for position to defend, either to defend or attack, or to work with each other to increase your gap ahead of the third driver behind you?
It looks like that question may be answered very, very soon indeed, because Mitchell Hui has gained a lot of time through the opening sector there. He did, the last time we picked up Mitchell Hui, he had a 2.4 second gap to the cars up ahead. Now it's a 1.1 second gap. He will soon be in drafting distance. You can see him out there at the back, and Mitchell Hui, I'm sure, can see Jaswin Jali up ahead and Kavinder Singh further along the road. So this 2-horse battle might just become a 3-horse race with 3 different marks driving their heart out right now. And it looks like Jaswin Jali had not the best exit onto the Mulsanne straight, and it looks like Mitchell Hui is able to get into second place. That is an amazing amount of slipstream there that Mitchell Hui has managed to pick up there. It looks like Jaswin Jali had to drop back down in the pace, and now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a 3-car race for the lead. This is really going to fire things up at the head there. Of course, Kavinder Singh is 1.5 seconds further up the road there, but Mitchell Hui has the pace to catch him. The question is, will he be able to pass him once he catches up to Kelvin?
I think for me, it would be nice if you could try and the first 2 drivers trying to gain the lead over the third driver, but you know, you never know what's going to happen. So I think I would say maybe fight till the very end. Just keep fighting for the position. I mean, look at Mitchell, just gaining 1 place up to the second place because of maybe a mistake from Jaswin, and by the look of it, he has just made a mistake at one of the corners, and lost a lot of time actually.
Well, that's a big mistake there. Jaswin Jali, looks like there might be something wrong with his car. He's weaving the car just to try and check, but it looks like there's some handling imbalance that he's picked up. That meant that he's fallen off the road there at the Mulsanne corner, but he's dropped right the way back, and now Kevin Huan might be in a position to try and get third place. So the tables have really turned for Jaswin Jali right now, and it looks like he might not be looking or sitting too pretty. Now, could this be a question of tyre wear, or could this be a question of the car not handling as he would like it on a lighter fuel road? Because of course these cars are burning fuel at quite the rate. as Wehan previously mentioned, there's a lot of full throttle running, and with iRacing's fuel consumption being tied mainly to the throttle inputs, it's really going to be difficult to try and fuel save around the lap here at Le Mans. It's one of the big challenges around here, so it could be interesting to see how that sort of develops. But Zhou Huang there, he's really pushing very hard right now, trying to get past Shami Azri. He's within half a second. That's really in the battle zone for these two drivers around this track, and it looks like Zhou Huang might be setting himself up for an epic battle with Shami Azri.
Oh, he sure is. So this has been quite an interesting move as well. So this is Zhou Huang. He's making gains at this part of the grid as well. So you do have good excitement that takes place all throughout the field. Of course, we are riding on board him, and in front of him is. Oh, crap, I do apologize. It was Shami Azri that took the position, not Zhou Huang. But yeah, nonetheless, I think this has been quite a good battle that's been taking place at this point. Worth noting that both drivers are in fact on BMWs, so I guess their pace would be quite similar. Now, as we perhaps look around at some of the other battles that do go on, you can see that the sun is beginning to set even further. So we are moments away from nightfall, and that will be very interesting for all of us to see. He makes his way around the Ford chicanes, and this is where we turn our attention to Kevin Huang, who I think he's probably found himself much closer to Jaiswin Jali right now, due to Jali's mistake just a couple of moments earlier, and he will be very much motivated to close his gap with Jali and perhaps fight for third position.
Indeed he has. Now let's have a look at Shami Azri to see what happened between himself and Zhou Huang. There was a change of position between the two drivers, and it looks like Shami Azri just spun the car going into the Dunlop curves. It's the only part of the track that's really truly as smooth as a Formula 1 track, but even then it's very, very difficult. The road is cambered very differently to what most racetracks are. It's got a crown in the road. That means the center of the road all around Le Mans is the center of the road in most places is higher than the sides, so if you do get yourself a little bit crossed up going over the crown of the road, you can very easily spin out, and that appears to be what happened to Shami Azri, who is now quite a ways behind Zhou Huang at the moment. But Mitchell Hui there, he's really catching up to Kelvinder Singh, and it looks like the Ferrari has found a lot of pace this late into the race. This could be very good for Mitchell Hui and his chances of winning the race.
This is gonna get very exciting. We were just looking at Kelvinder and Jazrin as the top two contenders, but now it's changed. It's Kelvinder and Mitchell instead. And Mitchell is really catching up to Kelvinder over the past couple of laps. So really interesting to see how much faster can Mitchell go to try and overtake Kelvinder.
Indeed it is, and the big question will of course be Mitchell Hui. He's managed to catch up quite a lot of time there between himself and Kelvinder Singh, and I suppose this begins to raise a couple of questions in me. One, the question of fuel consumption. Perhaps Mitchell Hui is burning his fuel up quite a lot more than Kelvinder Singh. Will we see these two drivers having to make a pit stop? And secondly, of course, it's one thing to catch Kelvinder Singh, but as we've seen so often in Adrenaline Impact broadcasts and all throughout SimRacing over the last few years, it's quite another thing to try and overtake Kelvinder Singh. So this could really turn into a very, very exciting race going through the Porsche curves here. You can see how close it is. You can virtually read the serial number on the back of that car from this distance, and it looks like he's really pushing through there. Mitchell Hui might be able to make an overtaking move happen even before the Mulsanne straight.
Most certainly. So both drivers are going ever so close to each other. They are, not exactly bumper to bumper from this perspective, but right now they may well be. So this is Mitchell Hui. Is he going to go along the inside to go for the race lead? We are about 10 minutes to go in this race, and this is going to be Mitchell Hui along the inside of Kelvinder Singh, and he's probably going to close off this move for the race lead. So your new race leader, Mitchell Hui, at the 34-minute mark as he makes his way around the Dunlop chicane. And here we go. We've now got Kelvin Singh, who's been pushed down to second position, and we will continue observing how this battle will shape towards the final moments of the race. Of course, you would have, of course, in the back of these drivers' minds, they would also be thinking about how they'll be able to handle their cars as they approach nightfall, because it's going to be yet another element of challenge that these drivers have to overcome.
Indeed, the key once nightfall comes is to make sure that you don't minimize any mistakes you have and try not to make any mistakes at all if it is possible. We're now with Mark Land, who's battling very hard indeed with Shami Azri. This looks to be another exciting battle further down the leaderboard, but it looks like Shami Azri is going into the pits. Now that, again, raises the question once more, will these drivers need a pit stop? It looks like some of these guys have been on full throttle for an awfully long time, and as we know, these cars do burn quite the fuel load if you're on full throttle for extended periods, and it does sort of bring to mind the question whether there'll be enough there. Fred Ting, meanwhile, he's going side by side with Wai Leong, going down the main straight there, and he takes another position for himself, heading up into 8th place. Absolutely spectacular stuff from the Corvettes today.
Simply fabulous, and we're back with the racing action up on the pointy end of the grid. And this is Kelvin Singh, who's going to perhaps go for a comeback move, but he opts to take the outside line along Mao Zedong. So is we going to be able to hold off his race lead? Hold on to his race lead and hold off Kelvin Singh, and it would appear that he's done so relatively successfully, but this is Kelvin Singh who's going to go on a drag race with Wee as they take this additional high speed section. So we'll sit with them for this moment as we observe him jumping back into the slipstream and going out perhaps once again, and we'll see if he's able to obtain a slingshot.
This is going to be spectacular stuff. Govinda Singh trying his hardest to make sure he's just grabbing chunks of slipstream in order to try and get past Mitchell Hui again, but it looks like Mitchell is not going to have it all too easy at the front of the field. Now that Kelvinda can play with the slipstream of the car up ahead, he's able to bring that big BMW into contention. Now it's going to be Mitchell Hui's job to try and push that Ferrari as fast as possible through the twisty sections, through places like Porsche Curve and through the Dunlop corners as well, just to try and put as much of a gap between himself and Kelvinder Singh, because that's going to be crucial for Mitchell keeping the lead. Because of course, the more slipstream effect you can give, the more draft you can give to Kelvinder Singh, the more likely he is going to try and find a way around him. He's an absolute master at the aerodynamics of sim racing, and it's going to be very interesting to see how he can deal with Mitchell Hui. But Mitchell really pushing himself very hard through those sections of the corners there. Looks like Mitchell might be successful in giving himself just enough of a breathing room in order to try and get away.
In fact, I think through the race, Mitchell has been very consistent through the last few corners and been gaining a lot of time on the top two leaders in the opening part of the race, actually. So it seems that Mitchell has found somewhere that he can excel and has seemed to have taken quite a big lead over Kelvinder currently.
Indeed he has, and could that be the decisive point of the race? Could we be looking at the winner perhaps up ahead? We shall wait and see. Of course, we're now coming into nightfall, and things are definitely going to change. It's going to be a lot easier to make a mistake when you can barely see the road up ahead. It's going to be very challenging. Of course, these cars have very good modern lighting, but rest be assured they still can't see as well as they would in daylight, so it's going to be interesting to see how the drivers deal with the nighttime. But look at the lighting around the track here. It's absolutely spectacular. The feeling of driving into the pits section, the pit straight and into the Dunlop curves, it's a feeling of sort of going away from a place and then coming back to that place. As a lot of drivers have said, it's almost like coming home at the end of the lap, and you're able to see the lights, but as soon as you leave the pit section, you're going to go back out into the wilderness. And so it is with Wai Leong and Fred Ting. This looks like it's going to be a very interesting slipstream battle coming into the Mulsanne Strait.
And we are very much approaching nightfall. You can just look over towards the horizon. Very, very scenic moment here as White In takes us along a top speed run down the Mausan Strait. So very much enjoyable for all of us. And you know, I think what's also enjoyable is that iRacing does model in the artifacts along the sides of the road. You know, all the other objects around. You know, I think there's even a KFC branch somewhere in the track as he makes his way around the Corvette of what would appear. Oh, it's probably made a little bit of mistake. And that was Fred Ting in his yellow Corvette. So, you know, that was a relatively unsuccessful move in taking the position.
That sort of brings home the challenge that is driving at night here at Le Mans. It's very difficult to pick out the braking zones, and it's very difficult to pick out the racing line. So that is almost a classic example there from Wyan. Just coming into the braking zone there, you have to be so careful picking the braking zones, especially when you're trying to overtake, because you really can't see that much when it comes to the standard cues that you would use going around the track, the objects on the side of the track that he can use to try and pinpoint your turning location. As it comes into the nightfall, it really becomes very hard to try and pick out those little landmarks that drivers tend to use. But now, Waleong is going to go side by side with Fred Ting. Could he do something coming into the Mulsanne corner? It looks like he's unable to do so, but Fred Ting makes a big mistake there on the brakes. Just as I mentioned there, he must have missed his braking zone ever so slightly, and that's put him almost off the track there, and that's given Wai In Leong a 8th place in the standings.
All eyes to Kevin Huang now as the right on the roof camera, the rear-facing roof camera of his Ford GT, and so it was right. The beautiful, gorgeous lights on the Ford GT going full blast at this point at night, and it's just so mesmerizing. You know, as you just stare deep into the purple lights. You know, I think you can begin to even hypnotize yourself as you look at Kevin Huang making his way around. It does look like, you know, it does look like those kind of plane afterburners if you look at it from the right angle.
It does. I was just gonna say that, and it's amazing. Wow, I have not seen the 4 GT at night. So yes, this looks amazing. Way amazing.
Yeah, definitely. It's almost as if the Ford is carrying around its own halo at the back. It's unbelievable. The glow as it goes through the night. And props to Kevin Huang. He's done a very good job to keep that car up in the top 5. He's now in 4th at the moment, doing 3:49s and doing very well for himself, actually. His best lap was his last lap there, 3:49.282. That's quicker than he went in qualifying, so that's definitely a good sign for him. Meanwhile, Mohammed Mohaimin goes for an overtaking maneuver on Markland. It looks like he had a big slipstream advantage there going into the last section here, coming up to, I believe, the Porsche curves. Indeed, it is the Porsche curves there, and it looks like Mohaimin manages to get the Porsche ahead of the Ferrari at the Porsche curves.
It seems that Inter actually has a very good lead right now over Calvin Racing, 2.7 seconds. So the night really does seem to give another element of difficulty in driving the Le Mans. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Kevin is able to try and catch up to Mitchell and to get back the lead.
You can see there from the rear view camera of Mitchell Hui how little light there is at Le Mans. It's so dark around a lot of the parts of the track here. Of course, this is a normal public road going down from the town of Le Mans out towards places like Reims, and it's unlighted for the entire duration of the road, so it's a really challenging. It's actually quite hard to drive at night, even on a road car, if you're trying to get somewhere. So imagine trying to do that in Le Mans cars as they thunder into Mulsanne corner. Absolutely stunning stuff there.
It does look beautiful, and Le Mans driving at night with no lights at all. It's a really beautiful sight.
Indeed, and there we see in the replay a big mistake there from Saiful Arif. It looks like the car snapped hard left on him, a huge snap oversteer moment that unfortunately has put him a little bit further behind when it comes to trying to get himself further up the top 10. But for now, Mitchell Hui is our leader as we come into the final minutes of the race. In fact, 45 minutes have passed. This is now the final lap of the race. Mitchell Hui has the 2.5 second advantage, and barring any mistakes, cross fingers, knock on wood, he will be able to take home that win. And what a drive it has been. We've been looking at Kalvinder Singh, we've been looking at Jaswin Jali and how quick they were, but Mitchell Hui is just able to really light that car up on fire, and he is able to balance all of the factors, the fuel, the tyre wear, the aero, drag, and all the other sort of elements. Really brought that together, and now he is in the lead at the right moment. That is the last lap, coming around, just exiting the Porsche curves there. That's Maison Blanche, the yellow lights you see in the windows there. That is the actual Maison Blanche section there, and as he's flicking the light on, he's going to go around the Ford curves for the last time. He's throwing the car with abandon. He's absolutely having a whale of a time. That is Mitchell Hui coming across the line to win here at Le Mans for round 7 of the SRA race. Kalvinder Singh, a valiant effort to come home in second place. Jaswin Jali brings it home in third, completing our podium with Kevin Huang right behind him in fourth place. Absolutely spectacular racing all throughout the field this weekend, and a special congratulations has to go to Mitchell Hui. Parawat Chukan comes home in 5th position. Absolutely stunning stuff.
Fantastic race by all these drivers. And this is Federico Teixeira making his way around the start-finish line. He finishes in 6th, and we've also got the rest of the field here. Saiful Arifin will come home. He's making his way down the 4th chicanes, as well as have all the other drivers. So he is going to come home in 7th. See that? So you can see that in the night sky. You've got a very nice lit up Rolex pit entrance there. It looks very nice at night, and of course flashing lights. If you're not careful, it can give you seizures if you look at it the wrong way. And that is in the background Leong Wai-in, who comes home in 8th position. Also got Fred Ting in his Corvette, who will come home in 9th, and Joe Huang in 10th positions. The other drivers, we've got Mark Lang, who is still he's still completing his lap. Well, I just learned the hard way that Mark is actually faster than I am, so I can't see defeat. And he's
This is why I commentate and not race.
exactly.
But absolutely fantastic work there from Mark Lang to be in 11th place. They're coming across the line ahead of Shami Azri. And he's going to come across the line there. It must feel absolutely amazing to cross the line at night here at Le Mans there. You're just coming to that big sea of lights there. You see the Motul sign lit up, you see the Rolex sign lit up. You see the lights on the grandstand, the lights in the pits complex as they come across the line. Shami Azri finishes in 12th place. And further behind is Lloyd Lachlan, who's doing quite well for himself, considering the Radical SRA doesn't have the best lights in comparison to the GTE car. Now, I will have to admit that Lloyd did confide in me that he was a little bit worried about the Radical being a little bit too outpaced on the straights earlier on in the week when I managed to have a little quick chat with him. But it looks like he's still able to put a few GTE cars away there and manages to get the car home in 13th place.
So we've also got the rest of the drivers who will round out your grid of participants tonight. Kyle K coming home in 14th, and also the rest of the drivers, Muhaimin, Jaswi Junos, who will finish this race. Shao Rijab unfortunately would appear to have to retire, and we've also got Narong Punsanong, who did not who did not come home tonight. So, of course, it's been such an exciting race. So we go through your race results once again. Your race winner, Mitchell Hui. He is in fact from this team called Will Punt for Food, but unfortunately it's not reflected on the overlay. So Mitchell Hui, your race winner here at the SRA GTE-Radical series, round 7 here at Circuit de la Sarthe. Kalvinder Singh comes home in 2nd, and Jaswin Jali in 3rd. Kevin Huang in 4th, Parawat Chukan in 5th, Federico Teixeira in 6th, and miraculously the sun has reappeared on the track in the background. Saiful Arifin in 7th, Leong Wai-in in 8th, Fred Ting in 9th, Joe Huang in 10th, Mark Lang 11th, Shami Azri 12th, Lloyd Lachlan in the lone radical comes home in 13th. I would like to see him text a little more on track. Kake in 14th, Muhammad Mohammed in 15th, Jasri Junos in 16th, Shara Ujab finishes 17th, and Narong Bunsono records an 18th place finish.
Absolutely fantastic race there, and must I say it's been an absolutely brilliant race to hold here at the iconic Le Mans circuit. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. It's a track that's beautiful in daytime and it's absolutely amazing at night. But let's have a look here at the replay and some of the starting scenes there. We had cars going 3 wide going into the Dunlop curves there. It's amazing that we didn't have any mishaps. Everyone has been racing very cleanly. Only a few incidents there, a couple of racing incidents throughout the course of the race. But look at that iconic image of a bunch of GTE cars just barreling into the first left-hander there. Absolutely stunning stuff. And the battle between these two drivers, what can I say, between Kavinder Singh and Shami Azri there, fantastic stuff.
So we do in fact have post-race interviews in order for this broadcast. We have Fred Tink in the waiting room. So let's drag him up. And Max and Brian, why not let's have a chat with Fred himself.
Good evening, Fred.
Hey everyone, I hope my mic is working.
Absolutely,
Yes,
we're getting you loud and clear. So how was the race for you? It looked to be a relatively eventful little run through the forest here. How are you finding the track and the car?
It was just I guess it's a bit half and half because I was just testing out on ACC and I forgot to, you know, I had some settings on my wheelbase set for ACC.
Wow, that's quite. That would have been quite the quite a way to find out halfway through the race that some of the settings aren't quite right there. So I'll be interested to hear if Brian has anything to ask.
Yeah, actually I do. How did that transition to the night feel? I mean, on the screen it looks fantastic, but I think in the car it must have been a whole different feeling altogether.
Well, definitely. I mean, I guess some do excel at night races, and you know what I did was in order to transition into night, I guess I left my room lights off in that sense. So even then, before that, this week, I've been sort of I think I went into 1 or 2 races where it was basically night races. So trying to acclimatize myself to that also. But yeah. Just a bit going back to where I was changing the settings on that part also. Yeah, it was about 30 minutes during the practice that I remember why was everything, you know, feeling so different. So I had another 20 minutes or so just to quickly try and get my settings back.
Thankfully, you managed to get the settings back. I must imagine you must have been panicking towards the start of qualifying if you couldn't get the settings back into what you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. And then not only that, but then, you know, trying to get the settings back, the feel of the car. So I guess, you know, I think towards the first lap itself, where we were heading into the final end of the lap itself, yeah, I sort of overbrake. But then, you know, there was an overtake pass on you know the S band. I guess that was the wrong place to overtake in that sense, also.
I have a question there from Lloyd Lachlan. He's wondering why you didn't give him a push in the Radical.
Yes, he's always been asking that every race that we've been in.
Oh, it's the last race next week. Maybe it's time to consider giving him that push.
Oh yeah.
Maybe when the race is over, then we'll give him that push. But you know, yeah, depending on how the next the next race goes at next weekend, if he's still at the back, probably we can give him the option to start racing at the front. And hey,
Sounds
Wonderful.
You kind of want to do that, yeah?
Hey, idea. Yeah, maybe when we're all able to meet up in town, then yeah, we should do it one day. Haha. Well, look, Fred. Usually, in a broadcast, usually at this point, we would ask if you have anyone you'd like to give a shout out to, any sponsors, or anyone you'd like to thank. So, please take it away. If you have anyone you'd like to give a shout out to, please do so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll give a shout out to the association over here because I just only joined in and very glad to be able to participate in whatever races that I can, and trying to sort of get myself acclimatized to ACC also. Maybe if there's a available slot next Wednesday, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Batters, right?
Yep.
I
Next week is
we
going to
we are
Bathurst.
Bathurst.
Yeah, we're going to Bathurst next week, so that would be an interesting
Oh,
track to
wow.
run on. Yeah, that track I personally have not been. That track hasn't been kind to me. Let's put it that way.
Well, you just have to use more brakes on at Bathurst, and you'll be fine. Trust me.
Yeah, I find the settings a bit different in ACC because I really had to pump the brakes hard on in ACC versus iRacing. So yeah, exactly. At least it's not a 24-hour enduro race that I participated back. I think there was a Bathurst 24 in iRacing.
Indeed. And just before we leave you to head on out of here, just a quick question: do you have any advice for the guys coming into Bathurst next weekend?
Oh, good God! Just don't let the mountain eat you alive, I guess.
Well, in fact, for our series, we're going to Indianapolis Grand Prix next week here on iRacing. The Bathurst one is the one on ACC, and yes, the Bathurst there is very fabulous.
Awesome, guys. Hope to see you all there.
All right, thank you so much, Fred, for being part of this. So, if we're able to perhaps have our final thoughts on how this race had turned out from our own perspectives. So, let's go one round around, and perhaps have some of our thoughts. If we could share about how we thought this race turned out.
Indeed. Well, it's been an absolutely iconic event, hasn't it? And we've been racing at quite a few legendary venues. We've been lucky enough to broadcast the race at Road Atlanta, Charlotte Roval. Laguna Seca was very entertaining indeed, as well as right here at Le Mans. What more can one ask for? It's been absolutely amazing, and the turnout at quite a lot of the events have been quite good as well. So it looks like it's all pointing upwards for the SRA community, and hopefully we'll be able to keep this going throughout the course of the new year.
Yeah, for me, I felt that the race was nice. Racing at Le Mans is always something special, I guess, for any drivers and every drivers who drive in Le Mans. And looking at how Mitchell coming in from where he did, it's amazing race, and big congratulations to Mitchell, and also to Kelvinder and Jasmine Jelly on the top three.
So, I guess it was a really exciting race. I think I was putting quite a bit of I was trying paying attention to the start of the race. And I noticed that there were a lot of position changes. Through for a whole good lap, and I've never really seen that before in other, quite a lot of the other rounds that had taken place prior. But I think overall, I imagine that been a great experience for the drivers, and likewise, I also had a good time calling this race. So it does mean that this is going to be the final broadcasted round for the SimRacers Asia iRacing series. Of course, the next round, the finale, will be at Indy Grand Prix Road. That will take place behind closed doors. And I do understand that perhaps Adrenaline Impact might also have additional events throughout the weekend and also the next couple of weeks that will be taking place.
Indeed, we're going to be starting out a few more broadcasts. We had a fantastic Imp versus Mini race, so hopefully we'll be bringing more of the touring car legends pack from Assetto Corsa and bringing the old school racing to life. It's been absolutely fantastic, great fun indeed. I've been competing in that series myself, getting my hand back into sim racing, and it's been an absolute pleasure. But we're planning all sorts of stuff up ahead. We will be waiting with bated breath as to the Adrenaline Impact iRacing Malaysia Championship. Hopefully we'll be able to announce something within the following few weeks. But for now, do stay tuned to Adrenaline Impact for more information as to upcoming events and happenings as we go along. We'll be active in pushing a few more posts up so that you guys can be aware of any racing that happens, and hopefully we'll be able to do some more one-off iRacing events as well, which will be open not only to the SRE community here in Malaysia, but we'll also hand that invitation along to the SRA guys as well as the Macau-China SimRacing Association. So all that remains for me to do actually on that point is to thank the SRA community, the Sim Racers Association of Singapore, the Sim Racers Asia community, and the Macau-China Sim Racing Association, as well as the SRE guys, Sim Racing Enthusiast guys, for participating in these races and really bringing these races alive. Absolutely fantastic stuff, and thanks to all the competitors who make it happen. So that will be it from us in the broadcast booth. All that remains for me to say is yet again to thank the Macau-China Sim Racing Association, SRA and SRE, along with the Sim Racing Association of Singapore. And a special thanks to all of you guys who've been watching these races, the SRA GTE-Radical series. It's been absolutely amazing stuff. We've met quite a few friends along the way. We've even had viewers from as far away as America tuning in during their breakfast time. So thanks a lot, guys, for watching. And yeah, it's been an absolutely fantastic experience for me as well. And it's also been a fantastic experience for Khairul Alang, our director, who is sitting there in the commentary booth as well. Any last words, Khairul?
Hey everybody, so I'm the guy behind the triple screen, not having a steering here. So thanks for watching the streams and sharing. We do broadcasts on iRacing and EC. In the moment, we're trying to come up with a continuing season 3 of our own championship. So stay tuned for the news. And that's about it. And I would like to congratulate the winners for today, Mitchell Hui, Kavinder Singh, and Jazrin Jali. There were great battles for the top 3 positions. Okay, so there's nothing more for me to say. And Matt, thank you everyone. Thank you, thank you, Chan Wei Han and Brian, and all of the SRE guys. Yeah, thanks for having us this season for broadcasting.
Yes, and a special thanks, of course, for myself goes out to Brian Tan, who is Brian Chan.
Brian Chua.
Brian Chua. I do apologize. I turn off I turn off the names there. I should have made a bit more of an effort there. So I do apologize, Brian. And thanks there to Lloyd Loughlin for a fantastic little text commentary as you're going along as our in-car commentator of sorts throughout the season. That's been very entertaining indeed. And also a very, very special thanks to Chan Wei Han, who has kept me company in the studio over the past few races, carrying me along and making sure I don't make too many mistakes.
Yeah, one side note here, we're trying to synchronize our schedules with SRA. So please keep a tab on us for, we might do back-to-back events with SRA. So it'll be a fun week for you if you're into drifting or into circuit racing. There might be something in for you.
Indeed. So thanks to everyone else, and a special thanks to all of you out there who have been watching the series. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully we'll be able to do this soon. But that's not going to be the end for broadcasting for Adrenaline Impact. We do have quite a lot more content coming, so do stay tuned. And do stay tuned to the SRA guys, of course, with the AC and the iRacing. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. But for now, that's going to be it from Khairul Alang, from Brian Chua, from Chan Wei Han, and from myself, Max Palmer. It's a very, very good night. Ta-ra!